of sharing gratitude towards people today. I don't know, between the exercise of doing that and reading the different, or listening to the different, it was pretty cool. I guess for me, it's always kind of hard to sit down and just write it down on a piece of paper or tell somebody in person how thankful you are for them. But I'll kind of open it up to you guys to kind of your experiences went and your reactions, or the reactions from the people to you.
I can go ahead and start. I think, well, one of them I had to end up being an email because he is my best friend. He lives in California, and I live in Washington. But I thanked him for a lot of the experiences that we had growing up throughout high school. We learned a lot from each other, and just being able to express it in writing, I'd never done that to him before. So as I was writing it, it brought back so many ways of memories and brought even more gratitude into my life. And I just looked for the good in everything that I saw that day.
That's awesome. So do we have a new group member?
Brooke, did I mess up and invite you and you're supposed to be in 341? I could have easily done that. I just had all these names.
There she goes.
I invited her when I wasn't supposed to, so I can tell her on the next one. Oops.
They start coming in on wait a second. Did we just have one?
I was like, we do have a Brooke.
I felt kind of bad for a second, but okay.
We could have expressed some gratitude towards her for putting up with me and inviting the wrong person. Oh well. Things have happened. Anything else? I mean, different people they talk to. Obviously, each of us had 3 opportunities, so a couple more of them out there.
So I can talk about kind of, mine's actually a long-term one. So I started something similar to this. She's back. Something similar to this a while ago. It was inspired by a conference talk earlier this year. So I was a Relief Society president in my ward, and I was overwhelmed because we had 90 sisters that I was over. And like half of them didn't come to church over that, I think. And so it was just like really frustrating. And I had this talk that I listened to, and it was on the same idea of expressing gratitude and like giving a small like token or something along the way. And so I made an effort to do at least like 3 people a week. While I was Relief Society president, it actually went up to 10 some weeks, just depending on how much time I had. And I would just leave notes like saying thank you about things that they did in Relief Society or things that we noticed that were great about them. And they were completely anonymous. So it didn't say it was from me, but it was anonymous. And it's been really cool to see that ward. We're not there anymore, but we're still involved with them, and to see how like this attitude developed. It started with just me doing that every week, and then suddenly like there were people popping up saying that someone else dropped something off at their doorstep. And the ward constantly does that now. And so like sometimes you'll find potatoes at your doorstep with a little note on it, or you'll find flowers just to brighten your day. And since then, it's kind of been something I make a habit of just because I loved doing it myself. And so I just choose one person a week to drop something off at their doorstep. And mine's anonymous, but I usually put in a note about something great I've noticed about them. And I don't know, I feel like I have seen a change in people over that time and how they act, because I think it's a chain reaction. So you show gratitude, show that love to someone, and then they're going to turn around and do it to someone else because they remember how good it made them feel. And it just creates an atmosphere, I think, is what I was thinking. So sorry for that long-winded response, but.
No,
that was good. Yeah.
That was really good. Anybody else want to share anything? I know I'm putting you all on the spot. It's a tough one.
Well, mostly I just feel like my answers are pretty generic. I don't know if I had any like great feelings, or because I mean, kind of like what Crystal said, it's kind of something I, especially like with my wife and my my parents and those around me is something I try to do often. But I think, you know, I kind of feel like I just had the same answers everyone else would. So
Yeah, and
that I felt good inside,
you know,
or
I did
you
a
know,
couple.
the textbook answers. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we all need to work on a little bit to where we could, you know, really with people. I did a couple of them at work because sometimes it's hard because it seems like I'm always trying to correct somebody, make them do better. Failed where it's sometimes it's I don't recognize them for the really good things they do and how successful they are and how much more successful they make me through those efforts. And I think that gets left out far too often in what I do, and opportunity to share those feelings towards them in that case as far as how good they really do. It's not always bad. They do a lot of great things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that made them appreciate you as a boss as well. I don't
But I'm not the honorary guy all the time.
know.
Speaking of that, jumping from that, what do you think the role of gratitude is in organizations where you work at? It can increase your efficiency or productivity or effectiveness.
I think it absolutely can.
What kind of
Because as you share gratitude, this happened to me at my last job. Is every single team meeting, we'd all share something that we were grateful for, either a person or a thing or something that had happened, and it increased everybody's morale. And if you have a higher morale, people are going to work harder. If you're happier, you're going to work harder. It happened with our team. We haven't had a team like 20, 25 people, and we almost doubled our work in 1 week just when we started doing that.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
It's amazing. Anybody else have some? I have a bad one, but I can talk about. But you guys, anybody else got some good ones?
Well, it may kind of be a bad one. I just know from like jobs I've had, the majority of like complaints that people have is that they don't feel like people recognize the effort that they put in. And I guess if you don't feel recognized, whether you put in like a mediocre amount of effort or like a lot of effort, like if there's no difference, then why would you bother putting in more effort? You know, like you'll just do the bare minimum because it doesn't really matter. You're not going to get recognition anyway. But then I think if you express gratitude when people go above and beyond, then they're more likely to continue doing that and like make that a habit.
Yeah,
I think people like success, you know, so when they feel like they've been successful and you should share gratitude with them, they want to keep doing that over and over again, and they want to keep being successful.
Yeah, there was a study done on marriage, and so it's kind of different organizational structure, but like in life, and it talks about how when you have a marriage and you're constantly correcting the other person, you're constantly telling them, well, you're doing this bad and you're doing this bad and you're doing this and why are you doing that? It makes them shut down. The spouse will automatically psychologically shut down, and so then there's this disconnect between the couples. And I think this applies in any kind of an organization. There's a disconnect in communication because the person feeling shut down shuts down communication and everything. Whereas if instead, when you notice them doing a good thing, you point it out and you say that good thing, and then you point out every time, then they'll continually increase doing the good thing and decrease doing the bad things. And in your mind, you will begin to see them doing good things more and bad things because you're choosing to recognize it. And it was in a marriage and family relations class. I think they talked about that. And like 9 times out of 10, it saved a marriage by just choosing that one thing. So it's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, it's all about positive and negative reinforcement right there.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the difference in my kids from, you know, being positive with them versus being negative, whether it's on the soccer field or dancing or whatever it is, or through their grades or through school, even teaching them when they were really struggling with math or reading. On a negative side, they just shut down completely and they gave up and they threw a fit and they cried and hurt as a father and wasn't doing a very good job with them. But if you built positively on it, helped them get better step by step, it was amazing how quickly they came along. And that works, like you said, in your marriage, that works in your work, that works in your church callings with my CTR4s that I just kind of be the bouncer with and my wife teaches them. But that expressing that good stuff really makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, I don't know how long this one's supposed to last tonight, but I don't think it's going to last like an hour. So this next one is, what are the barriers to expressing gratitude? What stops us from doing it? Those.
I think mostly if anything, honestly, I'd feel kind of embarrassed. And I don't know why I feel embarrassed to be grateful. But I think I kind of feel embarrassed to share my feelings with that person in that way, to share that, like, I'm grateful for what they did. I don't know, for myself, I get kind of shy when it comes to things like that, especially for people that I'm not close to.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yep.
Maybe sometimes we feel we don't know what their reactions are going to be. And I mean, you would think just saying thank you may provoke not necessarily a bad reaction, but it's just because of that fear of the unknown. I know that's one of the reasons I don't express gratitude as much.
Yeah, and I like what like Crystal said earlier about like if you focus on the negative long enough, then that's all you could see. So I think in a lot of situations we just don't like recognize it or like see things to be grateful for, or if we do, we're like, oh, well, I don't need to say thank you, I guess, is kind of what I was thinking.
Any other thoughts? I just think getting in the habit is the easiest way for me to overcome it. Every month I get a chance to write little good job letters to my guys or my gals that work for me, and then I try to do it throughout the month, and recognizes them, number one. Number two, it recognizes them a chance they can win a bunch of money and all other kind of things. But to have them stick out and have their name up on a board, to say that they did this, they went out of the way to take care of this customer, or they saved a bunch of money doing this, or they throw bald tires on a car and they put new ones on. I don't know, whatever it was, or they saved me a bunch of money on payroll because they did something in the right manner. It makes a difference, and they buy off, and then it becomes easier for me each time more. And so it's very successful for me that way. But thoughts on that? Are we good? Nikki, you're being quiet.
Yeah, I got that too. I was like, Nikki, you haven't said anything yet.
You guys are doing great. You're saying all of my thoughts.
Usually you're full of all sorts of words of wisdom. So
I know, I'm trying to give you a break tonight.
there wasn't a whole lot else there's only really three major points to talk about tonight. And, and I don't know how much deeper to go into that other than maybe talk about something from the different, the talks or the things about gratitude, how they can affect our lives from President Monson or whatever.
I really kind of appreciated the Harvard Business Review one, or actually the two that were specifically about work, because I think this is something that we typically think of in our personal lives more so than our work lives. So I think it was good for me because I think that it's definitely something that I can do better at work. So I mean, I'm glad you guys have used a couple of examples because it isn't something that I have purposely tried to do at work, but I think I'm going to try to be better about that. And plus, because then I can kind of back it up by saying, hey, there's obviously benefits to doing that. And so I'm going to try something different kind of a thing. And I think it'll make it a little easier to kind of incorporate that into my work experience. Whereas usually I would tend to kind of focus on my personal or my spiritual life more so than my work life in regards to gratitude. So I was kind of appreciated reading those couple articles for sure.
Yeah, the one part I like, I think it was the Harvard one. But anyways, if you just look at the highlights, it's talking about reducing employee turnover.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it on a previous one, but employee turnover is very, very costly for what I do. I mean, when it all adds up from productivity to customers liking the same people all the time. And most of the time, if my managers or I or the management team would pay closer attention and rub shoulders to shoulders more with the team members that are new or struggling or need to figure it out, or maybe they seem to be lifted by telling them thanks and how much we appreciate them, that turnover goes down and that experience for the customers, increases to be so much better. And then they're one of those that go out with the power of social media and say something good, versus those that just go out and just beat the crap out of you. And in most cases, we probably deserve it. But it's amazing the difference that can make just by showing them a little bit of gratitude and making them be that better person, sticking around, and making it something more than just that part-time or potential full-time job that can turn into something really cool. So
something I was thinking of when you were saying that is actually like an experience of being the employee in the situation of having like a boss recognize my hard work. And it was in one of my last positions, and it was a hard job, and it was very mentally time consuming, and took a lot of work. And there were days where like I just felt like we just got plowed, like, just constant stuff. And my favorite thing that my boss would do is, and this is obviously something that you have to see if in the atmosphere and the culture of the company that's okay, but at the end of a hard day, he would text me and just say, "Hey, thanks for all your hard work today." And that was it. But getting that sometimes, especially on the really, really hard days, to look and be like, "Oh, he noticed I tried really hard today. Like, he noticed." Okay. And it made me feel better about the day. Like, I didn't go home feeling like angry about the day anymore. It was like, okay, my hard work was noticed. It's all good. And it made it so like I was able to come back the next day feeling happy, and I didn't dread coming to work. And it's just, those small things. I don't think you have to do any grand gestures, but the small, just like, "Thanks for your hard work today. I noticed." Perfect.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Today when I was opening my mail, I got a little good job note from my divisional manager. I mean, he's over 600 plus stores, and I just have 10 of them. But that was cool for him to pull out and recognize 4 or 5 things that we did great in the previous month. Because it wasn't easy. It was a tough thing to do. But when you get that little bit of recognition from him, it sure makes it well worth it. Mm-hmm. And it makes you ready to go conquer that next day or that next week or that next month.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know a whole lot else for tonight. Does anybody got anything else they really want to talk about, or we can kind of just call her good?
I think it'd be good to be done.
Yeah.
It's late.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton left to really talk about, but good job, guys. I appreciate all your input. It does make a difference for each of us to hear all those experiences from each other, and hopefully makes us better as we go forward. So with that said, I guess we can call her good and head on tonight and finish up your homeworks or tuck your kids in bed or whatever you got to do, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, guys.